Oh boy. Well, I think we just get into it. Roll the music. So, Boom hit Disney Plus, and we have gotten ourselves, in my opinion, the best Doctor Who episode for me personally since Heaven Sent, all the way back in the 12th Doctor's era. And it's no surprise that it was written and brought together by Steven Moffatt, somebody who is somehow able to always deliver these one off type stories that make Doctor Who special. And for people who don't know, he's somebody who, even in the current showrunner, Russell T Davies' original era of bringing Doctor Who back, he had classics in there like Blink, which debuted the Weeping Angel villain that I think everybody probably knows about now. You had the Forest in the Library, or Forest of the Damned, or something like that, which introduced River Song, and it was a two-part episode that was just so good. You have so many episodes during the two eras of the Doctors that he ran. He ran Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, and then Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor. He has a way with dialogue, and he has a way of being able to tell a single episode story and get everything possible out of it as you can get. And that's exactly what happened here with Boom. And I'm just going to go through this beginning to end. And I was like, what's going to be spoiler talk? What's not? And I'm going to be light on spoilers, but like the premise of this episode, as we see, is the Doctor and Ruby kind of end up on this war type planet. And when the Doctor thinks he's hearing somebody who needs help, he goes to try and find them and ends up stepping on a landmine. And the whole episode is the Doctor, one, making sure the landmine doesn't go off, but two, figuring out how he can get out of this mess for not just his sake, but for everybody else around him. And it is just an intense episode. 45 minutes of emotions, 45 minutes of on the edge of my seat, which comes down to a lot of positive things. First, I already talked about Moffat and the writing. I think the dialogue was so good in this episode. It felt very real. Things that happened in this episode, including to even like Ruby and the Doctor, you fear potentially for their life in different moments. And even though, like, yeah, this is the third episode of like a whole reboot season of Doctor Who, you know they're not going to go away. You know they're not at risk. Moffat's writing and the serious tones of it makes you feel the stakes the whole way through. Couple with that, the outstanding performance from Ncuti Gatwa. Anybody who has been doubting him as a Doctor casting, I said after last week's the first episodes, he is the Doctor for me. I love it, especially after Maestro. After Boom, I can't imagine anybody saying he's not right to play the Doctor. His emotional range of holding back emotions, displaying emotions, his work with his eyes through this whole episode. Ncuti Gatwa delivers what I think should be a Emmy-winning type performance for a singular episode. It was so much power in his facial expressions, in his tone, in how he's just able to like give you anxiety, but also feel like he's still in control, be there for others while still wanting to make sure that like he's not gonna die himself. And it is truly a performance that for me is just eye opening, and I don't know what his future is going to be like. Obviously, he'll probably be the Doctor here for the next couple series, but they've already filmed most of season 1 and season 2 already. So, like, if he does a third season, I could see him going on to major roles after just with this episode. It's like an audition for a very grounded, serious actor, and I connected so much with the Doctor this episode, and that is all down to the outstanding performance from Ncuti Gatwa. layered in here is just this interesting situation, which, to go back to the beginning of the episode, we have a very long cold open of where we're following two soldiers on this battlefield trying to find their way back home. One of them is blind, one of them is not. And they come across this ambulance, per se, and this is in the very big in the future. And one of the things that we always see kind of come back in Doctor Who is the church kind of becomes its own military type, um, military body. And some people might find that offensive, but it's kind of a big symbolism and conversation point about how often, even in human culture, you see religion used to fund military and push power out. So I never have had an issue with that with Doctor Who. I think it really highlights things that are even in our ancient history, and I think still take place today when it comes to religious and people feeling their religion gives them the power to be the supreme overlords or be the higher power of the universe or their planet and stuff. So the cold open, seeing them run into this ambulance, which is an ambulance that is run by a corporation called Villain Run or Villain Run or something like that. And basically the ambulance are determining of like they're not worth saving, and they just kill these two people in the beginning, one of whom has a connection to one of the characters that we deal with throughout the episode, again leading right into the Doctor hearing kind of one of them passing away or fighting passing away and ending up on the landmine. You get so much emotional tones that pay off at the end of the episode. Everything, at first I was like, this is maybe a little bit long, but seeing where it goes, seeing how the important threads in that cold opening, that long cold opening, led to the final product of this episode and the resolution of this episode, was just perfectly put together type writing. And that leads us to the next part, which is kind of Ruby and the Doctor at odds. And, that starts out the Doctor is on the landmine. He's not trying to move, but he knows he's not going to be able to stay on one foot forever. So he needs Ruby to give him something to balance. And that whole scene is just great conflict and great just dialogue and moments between Ruby and the Doctor. Something that might have been missing, I think, in the first 2 or 3 episodes we've seen of these two together. And I think it delivered a great moment there. Add that into the running into people who are soldiers in this planet that have come across the Doctor and Ruby, Doctor on this mine and Ruby there, and the tension that brings, and everything that takes place there and what goes on there, and the whole entire idea that this villain run company that is using their supplies is just funding wars just enough that like you can think you're going to win wars, but you have so much casualties that you need them to invest in them, and how war is business. Now Doctor Who is always giving a lot of commentary, just like Star Trek gives a lot of commentary, and I think this episode just attacks so many things throughout, whether it be big companies being war harbingers because war is good for business, whether it be something as simple as what I think a lot of us do nowadays when tragedy happens, we just kind of say thoughts and prayers, which great intentions, but what is really there when you, besides just saying the words thought and prayers? Is it comforting to people? Is it kind of just like this idle by message? So much is going on with this background of the story, and Moffat is with this writing is really delivering just a lot of allegories and a lot of connections and commentary on what we see in the world today, and isn't afraid to be vocal about it and isn't afraid to make a stance about it. And I think that works in this episode's favor. The fact that they find out what's going on this planet, I think it works totally with the whole entire episode, and how it ends up resolving, I think, does great. But there's moments throughout that it just has you on the edge of your seat. And the soldier individual that we deal the most with is Monday, who is actually going to end up potentially being a companion in season 2. And according to not Stephen Moffatt, according to Russell T Davies, I saw on the behind the scenes, she's going to come, if she comes back, she's coming back and she's going to deal both with the Doctor's family history in Ruby's family history. And I thought that that character coming in kind of as hard as they were, being as faith based and very strongly opinionated as they were, and kind of learning the magic and the understanding of the Doctor, who he is, and everything that's going on there, worked very, very well. The brief interaction she had with Ruby, I thought, worked very, very well. I look forward to seeing this actress more. I don't know if, like, I can totally see why in this episode she delivered such a good performance that there's somebody that they want to bring back in a more permanent role. And that's because she just delivered just a very, I think, complex, great performance where she comes in kind of hard. You see some of her soft shellness, and you see her kind of learn and evolve as a character, which I think is so important when it comes to companions. And like I said, I understand why she'll be coming back most likely. And Splice, which is a young girl that is connected to one of the people in the beginning of this episode, she, I think, does the best as a child actor can. I don't think she's outstanding per se, but I do think that storyline and that thread line works for me. I think she played Terror very well when Terror needed to happen. And I really did have just a positive opinion on that part of the storyline. And wasn't sure when it first came out of like, okay, this is going to be stereotypical, this is going to be basic. And in some ways it might have been but it worked for me at a level, and I think it gave a resolution to this whole entire episode that I just think works top to bottom and allows Boom to be so successful. Now, we have to talk about the elephant in the room this season, and I don't know how I didn't notice it yet, but I caught on this weekend, don't worry. Susan Twist, who we've seen in 4, 5 episodes now. She was the maid to Isaac Newton. She was kind of a hippie barster in the Church of Ruby Road. She was a resigning officer in Space Babies. She was the tea lady in the Devil's Cord. And now she's playing the more kind of AI digital ambulance character. And given the things that happen in this episode and her kind of coming up on the Doctor as he's on a landmine and the interactions they have there, I have major questions about who Susan Twist is and what are these versions or these different versions we're seeing of her. Is this going to be one solid character throughout? I know some people think that maybe this is going to link back to the Doctor's original granddaughter, who we got name dropped in the Devil's Cord, Susan. Either way, she's been every episode, and this one I leave a lot of question marks because she interacts directly with our main character. She interacts with Ruby, and she interacts with the Doctor, and there is ways where if she wanted to be known who she is, she could have done that, but might not have. Definitely played more of that background type character type role, and the Doctor got a good look at that face now. So if we see Susan Twist show up again more, I want to see him start to recognize and put these pieces together, because most of the episodes so far, he hasn't came face to face with her. He hasn't noticed her, but he came face to face with Susan Twist this episode. So I am interested to see where Susan Twist and this whole story arc goes. But overall, the Boom was perfect. And I think the beginning of this season was very well laid out from Russell T Davies and Disney Plus, BBC, and everybody at Doctor Who, because, you know, you had your Church on Ruby Road, your holiday special, you know, coming off of the, you know, kind of fan servicey episodes that had David Tennant in it. You know, for Ncuti Gatwa and this kind of rebirth of Doctor Who. You then go from that Christmas special into a more, you know, very weird, very comical space adventure with space babies that is very Doctor Who on brand. You'll get these really out of left field type episodes with out left field type concepts and characters that sometimes work, sometimes might not work, but it's Doctor Who. You get those. Then you went into the Devil's Cord, where you had, you know, Jinx Monsoon playing Maestro, where you saw kind of the Doctor go have to deal with a foe head-to-head 1v1 in a way that you sometimes see with things like the Master, you know, or the Great Intelligence, or some other individuals, or, you know, a Davros and some of his classical villains. So you got to experience the Doctor in that setting. And then here with Boom, you got to experience a doctor just have to survive, be put into a scenario that there is no bad guy per se. There is no what's going on. It's a we're here, we're now, we're experiencing, and whatever happens here, you're going to be on the edge of your seat from the beginning to the end. We're going to tell very complex story arcs. We're going to tell a lot of commentary, and we're really going to make you feel emotion to get invested. And that is a great way to, I think, move this season along. And I think based on the preview, we're going to have a very companion heavy, focus centered episode next week with Ruby Sunday. And that again fits right into the theme of like you're getting to experience kind of all the different avenues Doctor Who sometimes goes through, and you're really, I think, delivering a good overall story to the season. We got more of kind of question marky. The snow came back for Ruby Rose. You know, is she 3,000 years old calendar age wise because that's how far they are from her time of birth? Or is she a being that might be around that long? Who knows? Who knows? But overall, I'm giving Boom here a diamond rating. I love this episode. Like I said, this is the best Doctor Who episode in years. Probably the best one since Heaven Sent. And it's one that I'm going to recommend people go and see. And if somebody's wondering why I'm watching Doctor Who, I'm doing these reviews, I'm going to stick them in front of Boom and be like, that's why, because this show has that type of magic. And you will get some weird stuff every now and then, but you will get these pockets of gold glory where you don't get this experience sometimes with other TV shows. And it's probably my favorite episode of TV so far in 2024. And it just earns that diamond rating. And I loved it. I'm loving this new Doctor Who season. And again, Ncuti Gatwa, man, outstanding, 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 outstanding performance in this episode and throughout this whole season. I'm loving the 15th Doctor. He is going to find his way to being my favorite Doctor, which is tough because I love Smith, I love Tennant, and I really, really, really love Capaldi. But if we keep seeing this mix of range, this mix of excitement, dread, worry, all the different type of ranges that we've seen with Ncuti in just 3 to 4 episodes, and he can continue this throughout, like he's going to get it for me. I just love Ncuti as the Doctor, and I can't recommend this episode enough. Tell me your thoughts down below. Do you agree with me? Are you very high on this episode? Do you disagree with me? Do you think this episode was boring and didn't have much going on? I've seen a couple people say that, but I've seen a lot of universal praise for this episode. And like I said, I'm happy Doctor Who is back. And man, Ncuti Gatwa, he's our Doctor.